Well, this past session I learned some very valuable lessons on pre-written content and DMPCs. Sometimes you gotta learn the hard way. When last we left our heroes, the players had just dropped off some information and picked up some information from Duke Argyle and Lady Valancourt, who is Bria the Bard's patron, and everyone except for Bria was inducted as Knights Errant of the Duke in service to the Duke, and given the task of going to the town of Bullridge and seeing what exactly happened there. There was some sort of terrible attack. I need details of what exactly happened. The news coming in is broken and unclear. I'm going to send my new Knights Errant to sort of a little test run for you to see what's going on. On your way there, if you feel like you need some, new gear or maybe cool, interesting items that have not been touched by the ravages of time, the tomb of Ribald of Palanthros is, open to you as an option. And so I just like throwing in little side quest things. Historically, I have run a game that was sort of very fast-paced. I would do an entire campaign, from level 3 to level 12 in like 20 or 30 sessions. So really fast-paced game, sort of narratively and everything, and I'm wanting to slow down a little bit more this time around and hopefully run a game starting at level 1 that lasts, I don't know, maybe a couple years, who knows. I'm not sort of committing to anything just yet, but one of the things that is involved in that is sort of slowing down and making uninteresting moments interesting, as well as having little side quests and stuff. So I wanted to have a cool little crypt or a tomb or whatever in here that the players could explore and maybe get some magic items, get some cool gear, and just have another thing to do. So the players sort of head out, notice the tomb, and outside of the tomb, sort of a day's travel away from that city of Riften, they travel there sort of no problem. And then they notice outside the tomb there are two orcs sort of standing next to where the tomb is said to be, and a big door, a big stone slab that was acting as a barrier or a door has been like moved to the side, sort of like tossed off just a little bit. And there's two orcs sort of standing outside. It looks very much like they're on guard duty. And the players approach and begin to negotiate and talk to the orcs. The only problem is these orcs speak Orcish, and the players don't. So that is a really tough situation there. And very quickly, the players sort of being all threatening and menacing and intimidating, the orcs attack, and then very quickly the orcs retreat inside the tomb, because it turns out there's a whole group of orcs living in here, and these two were just being on guard. And this was sort of my first genuine encounter with pre-written content. I have never before, in all of my years of DMing, used a pre-written module or adventure or anything. I have turned to them for ideas, for inspiration, for generic arcs, but I have never, word for word kind of run an adventure, or even word for word adapted an adventure. I'll go and I'll see, this is going to be, this is the bad guy and this is what they want, and this is the name of the town. I'm like, cool, I'll take those things, but I'm going to decide where combats are and, draw my own maps and things like that. Well, this time I was like, hey, listen, we got a little one-shot thing. Let me go find a one-shot online, a one-shot dungeon, a little crypt or a tomb or whatever, and I'll just run it, and I'll see how I feel about it. I hated it. I always have a very clear idea when I think about an adventure, or I think about a bad guy or a location. I have a pretty clear idea of what that space looks like right away. Not only the physical layout, but the tone and the feel and the types of stuff going on here. That's just something that I have, and not everybody does, and I'm not trying to disparage pre-written content. I think that it's really, really useful. I think that a lot of people should use it. I think that it's really, really helpful for a lot of people, but I had never used it myself. But I personally had never used it. I hadn't ever tried out pre-written content or anything like that before, and so I didn't know how it would feel to run it. And for somebody like myself who already has a really good grasp on the type of thing that I want to do with an adventure or layout or bad guys or whatever else, using somebody else's material, I don't like that at all. I feel like I have to, every time I go through and try to steal somebody else's stuff, I feel like I have to basically rewrite it from the ground up in a lot of ways. And so I tried to just say, let me just run this kind of as written and adapt it in places I have to. But for the most part, let me run this as it was intended to be run. And I didn't like it at all. I thought it was really confusing how it was written and laid out. I thought that some of the things that the author of this piece suggested to do in various places didn't make sense with how I envisioned, this tribe of orcs that had taken over this tomb and was trying to get at the deeper layers where maybe cool stuff was hidden, which was sort of the premise of the adventure. And I was like, that's a neat concept. And I think that if I had taken that concept and done it myself, it could have been a really cool dungeon. And by the way, I think the players had a lot of fun. I want to just lay that out ahead of time. I think the players had a really great time. They enjoyed the session. They thought the adventure was very cool. I didn't like it from a DM perspective, from me running it. And so that's going to be on me. And I'm very intentionally not mentioning, obviously, who wrote this little one-shot tomb and what it's called or where you can find it, because I'm saying terrible things about it. So why would I then mention it? Obviously, I think this person put in a lot of effort and they drew maps and the whole 9 yards. And so I respect the work that they did, but I don't think that running pre-written content is for me, at all. So the players sort of go through this crypt, and there is a tribe of orcs that have taken up residence here, and they're trying to clear out some of the zombies that are in here, but they haven't gotten access to, the deeper layers of the crypt where actually, all the good stuff is hidden. And the players kill all the orcs, and they start to filter through some of the traps and the problems and investigate and start to figure out, and they find, some secret rooms, and they avoid some ambushes, and they go through a tomb, a crypt. It's a dungeon. What do you think? They eventually find sort of the secret chamber that actually houses the body of the knight, Ribald of Palanthros, and they are going to go loot him, and then all of a sudden his ghost appears and is like, hey, what's going on? He doesn't say that, he's a ghost. But the players have to negotiate with him a little bit because they're trying to take all of his stuff, and he's about to attack them, and then they drop their enemy's name, Lord Lancaster, and of course, Ribald of Palanthros worked for the family, the heathen kings called Lancaster eons ago, and he also hates them, and so he's like, cool, I'm coming with you. I'm gonna possess one of the items that you can loot from my tomb, and I'm coming with y'all, because I also need to see this last line of Lancaster broken so that I can be put to rest. And that was a really cool scene, so I'm trying to figure out how much this little spirit ghosty boy is going to play a role, because obviously he's been trapped in a tomb for 3,000 years, so he doesn't know much. But it might be cool to have him pop up and do some role-playing things from time to time. Also very cool in this tomb, they got some magic items, a couple of interesting things, and one of the things that I thought was really cool was they got a scroll of Word of Recall. And the players very quickly were like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Word of Recall, do we have to cast it? We need 2 scrolls of it, right? Because we have to cast it on a place and then use it. And I was like, well, it's already, it's a scroll, it can be used. And, through their wizard NPC Ezra and through Ribald, they figure out that this Word of Recall is gonna take them somewhere. It's gonna take them to the place that whoever cast the spell originally designated as the place. And it's going to take them to some ancient, stronghold of, the Lancaster from aeons past. And that I think is going to be really cool, because I've put this sort of, tool at their disposal for them to use. It's sort of a get out of jail free card, right? It's Word of Recall. It's a crazy powerful spell for a 5th level party, but they don't know where it's gonna take them. So there is an element of, cool, we have a get out of jail free card, but we might go from jail to death row, or we might be totally fine. Who knows? So that is sort of an interesting little mystery for them if and when they choose to use that spell. But as for DMPC issues, let's go through what happened here. So there were some puzzles and some problems in the tomb, and in real life, we had time constraints. I really wanted to finish the whole tomb in one session. I did not want to have to come back to this tomb. It's supposed to be just a little one-off thing, and then we go to the town. Like, I do not want this tomb to take 2 sessions. So I was trying to expedite things a little bit, and people were short on time, and we started late, and just like real-world problems. But what that meant is there were times that I used the DMPC, which is not what it is, but he's just an NPC traveling with the party. But I used Ezra, the wizard that they press-ganged into joining their party. So it's not like I forced him in, but I used Ezra to sort of help nudge them in some helpful directions towards either solving some puzzles or, hey, maybe we check over here, or, you know, various things like that, because I was trying to speed things up. But let me tell you, after the session, the people who weren't crunched on time, we sat around and talked for a little while, and it was unfun for them because they felt like it was, you know, me, the DM, telling them the answer to certain things. And honestly, it kind of was, you know. Ezra's got a really high intelligence, and he was sort of solving some of the things, and he wasn't solving any puzzles. That's disingenuous. He was giving hints as to like, hey, maybe we could look at it like this, and trying to get the players on the solution track. But I mean, it's still me, the DM, telling the players how to think about or look at a puzzle. And the players rightfully protested. That is not a good guy move as a DM, to sort of nudge the players in the right direction to solve problems or investigate things better. And so that was something that sort of was a natural stumbling block, something that you should look out for, and something I am going to be super looking out for, making sure that Ezra is not the one initiating solutions at all in the future. Ezra can help in terms of if the players ask him to cast Detect Magic, he'll cast Detect Magic. But, you know, offering, hey, maybe we think about it or look at this problem this way, I don't think I'm going to do that ever again with an NPC, because even though I felt like I was role-playing Ezra, I felt like, what would Ezra do and say? It did not feel that way for my players. I was not intentionally trying to solve puzzles for them. I was trying to roleplay Ezra, and Ezra's very smart. But that doesn't matter. Whatever I intended doesn't super matter by comparison to what my players interpreted. So that's something that, you know, for you to be on the lookout for, and for me to be on the lookout for in the future, is realizing that if Ezra's going to travel with these people, I got to be really careful not to help them with Ezra. So that was a pretty rough mistake that I made in this tomb. But the players ended up clearing out these orcs. They found the ghost of Ribald of Planthros, and they looted his corpse, and they got an amulet of health, sort of sets your con to 19, and the spell scroll of Word of Recall, and then 2 items that I made up or stole from somewhere. I honestly don't remember at this point. I steal and invent so many magic items. I use almost nothing from the DM's guide in terms of straight up magic items, because I don't think they're very good, and I like the idea of cool magic items, flavorful magic items. I hate sort of plus X items, even though as I'm looking at them again now, one of those items is a plus X, but I think that was to make the item better than the armor that my player was currently wearing. But it's a bronze interposing breastplate. It's a +1 AC, +1 to con and strength saves, and once per day as a reaction to seeing an ally get hit with an attack or failing a saving throw, you can teleport switching places with that ally, and then you take whatever damage they would have taken or fail whatever save they would have failed. Like, you can't mitigate it in any way, but you're deciding, I'm going to take it completely and fully instead of you. And the other one is whenever you hit an enemy with a crit, you get temp HP equal to your level. So just a beefy thing for the Barbarian. So those are the items that they managed to recover. And they actually avoided a whole combat by seeing and realizing and reading the text and inscriptions on these tombs. It was like, man, if we touch these things, these zombies and skeletons and everything are going to come to life, and we're going to have to fight them. And we're kind of weak right now. We don't want to do that. So the players very quickly and intuitively put together, like, this is a bad move. Let's keep looking and hope that, this is not where the good stuff is. And luckily, that wasn't where the good stuff was. So yeah, big lessons learned this session in terms of running pre-written content completely as written, or as written as, I've ever done before. And then also, how helpful a DM NPC PC situation, an NPC traveling with the party, realistically. That's the best thing to call this. DMPC is very disingenuous. An NPC traveling with the party, how best to use them and give information from them, help them out. Utility is obviously a really good move here, so that you're the one casting light spells, and you're the one, identifying things for the players, because they don't have identify, and stuff like that, I think is very helpful for the players to have an NPC traveling with them. But stuff like having solutions and answers to puzzles and nudging them in directions is not good for NPCs traveling with the party. So these are lessons that I have learned, and hopefully you don't make those mistakes, because I've made them for you. So now the players clear out of the tomb, and they are on their way to Bull Ridge, the town of Bull Ridge. And I have a big old travel montage that I'm excited to bust out. Some overland travel rules that I haven't gotten to deploy before, and I'm just always trying to experiment with stuff. And so I'm looking forward to next session to see how things go with traveling to the town of Bull Ridge. So thank you all for listening. I hope you learned some interesting things or just had fun listening to the story, and I'll see you next time.